Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final session of the Attention Stage. Once again, just recommend putting the headphones on. You can hear me, you won't be able to hear them unless you put them on. There will be an opportunity, as I should have said last time, to ask questions through the app. If you don't have the app, it's the last session, but nevertheless, recommend doing so. And just in terms of introductions, I'll keep it short and sweet. This is, it's all about creating moments that matter. Sorry, that is the wrong one. Did that last time as well. What it takes to build high-performing, successful and fulfilled marketing teams. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Abby, who's director and founder of The Whole Marketer, John, who's the European Marketing Director of Edgewell Personal Care, and Joe McClintock, who's the VP Brand Marketing at The Trainline. So please welcome them to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? It's just a little bit warm, isn't it? Just a little bit warm. Nice to see lots of friendly faces in the audience. So we're going to have a panel today with the wonderful Joe McClintock and John Norman, as just introduced on the stage. But before I do, I just want to kind of give you a bit of an overview about why we're here, talking about what we're talking about. And I want to also leave you with five key pillars that I believe are really important to building successful and fulfilled marketing teams. So who are The Whole Marketer? I think most of you that are waving at me either are a client or know me from the Whole Marketer podcast. Outside of my passion project of the podcast, I run a capability and transformation capability consultancy called The Whole Marketer. And we work with passionate marketing leaders, so very intentionally brought passionate marketing leaders onto the stage today to build teams of create and build teams of successful and fulfilled marketers. And we do that by building the holistic skills, making sure that marketers have the support and empowerment they need to lead in our, as I always say, our challenging yet rewarding profession. And most importantly, they have the skills to really allow marketing to stand in its power, which is to lead that long-term commercial agenda and the growth and the brands of the businesses of tomorrow. But I just want to start here for a second, which is, let's just face into the reality of what it's like to build marketing teams in today's challenging yet rewarding profession. You know, many organizations are on a journey moving from the support function to the one leading them a long-term commercial agenda. And because of that, that is resulting in a greater breadth and accountabilities of role. We have, new thinking, new approaches always coming into the profession. Therefore, the roles are changing themselves. And we've got an increased accountability to have the commercial accountability and bring that to life in the marketplace. And that's happening whilst we're still trying to build trust and belief in what the marketing can do within an organisation and what the team can build. So I just want you to think about and imagine a world where marketing is not just called upon but respected. It is seen as the function that leads the long-term commercial agenda of the business. It is known for the change organisation, and everyone in that team is feeling not only motivated and empowered to deliver with clarity the vision, but is also wanting to bring that to life and has the reality behind it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So for me, before I start asking questions to my wonderful, passionate marketing leaders in a second, I just want to take you through what I believe are the 5 key pillars to build a high-performing, and I don't actually like the team high-performing. Not the team, I'm high-performing, the term high-performing. And the reason is I think it brings up thoughts of constantly having to keep going. It's an endurance game. But actually, for me, it's more about, are they successful in what they do? They're able, they feel empowered to do it. And are they fulfilled, happy and motivated? That's what's more important to me. And I think for me, the 5 things that are really essential to build that, first of all, is clarity. Put your hand up here if you get asked to do tasks without the clarity as to why you have to do them. Okay, most of the organisation. So we're running at pace, but not necessarily clear about where we're heading to. The analogy that I use is the marathon analogy, which Jo has heard me share with her team. You know, we're often asking people to run, but we're not telling them why we need them to run. We're not telling them how fast we need them to run. We're not telling them what that run's going to be like. We're not telling them the key milestones on that journey. We're not necessarily telling them how fast they need to run it or what success looks like for that run. We're not giving them the key milestones, and we're not necessarily always putting that support or training in place in order to make that happen. And what is happening is that we are running and sometimes not sure about where we are heading. And no one, I mean, personally, I wouldn't run anywhere unless I was in danger, okay? So I'm most certainly not going to run anywhere if I don't know why I'm going there, what the goal is, what I need to achieve, and how fast I need to run, and what support you're going to give me. So first of all, the clarity on the vision, the clarity on where we're heading, the clarity on the commercial goal, the clarity on what it is that we are trying to do and lead the transformation. The second is the milestones. So what are the milestones on the journey? And the milestones are really important on the journey, not just to have those moments where we pause and reflect, to know what we are working towards and see what we could do differently next time, but they're really important to make sure that you can believe that that vision is actually practically able to come to life. So the milestone and the plans to make that vision a reality. The next is the empowerment. Do your team have the skills, the ways of working, the processes, all of that in place in order to feel that they have all the tools that they need in order to deliver against that vision and deliver against on the role that you want to build for the role of marketing within your organization. The next is the support. Is everyone in your team have someone that they can go to, whether that's a sounding board, whether that's for advice? You know, there is a lot of skill gaps that are happening within our industry. We've got lots of marketers that are coming into the profession, maybe from a digital pathway or from a sales pathway or a different function. And so now being responsible for leading a lot of the strategic thinking, who can they go to ask those questions? Who can they go to close some of those knowledge gaps? Who can they go to learn about how to navigate the stakeholders and gain the buy-in within the organisation? And the last but by no means least, and probably fundamental to any working team, this isn't just for marketing, but do they have the trust amongst them in order to work collaboratively together, to take those areas of accountability and bring them to life? And do they have the psychological safety in order to ask the question, ask the thing that they don't know, put their hand up about the thing that they want to evolve or think that we can take to a different place without the fear of being called out or the fear of getting it wrong? So those for me are the key 5 principles, and I wanted to share those because they are the foundation of the questions I'm going to ask my wonderful guests today. So question number 1, for those that listen to the podcast, you know that I always start with a big, juicy question. And today's big, juicy question is, I'm going to go to you, John, first. What do you think it takes to build successful, fulfilled marketing teams?
Wow. Okay. So
big juicy
question. Thank you, Abby. So look, I think the first thing for me, look, there's a lot that does make successful and fulfilled teams, but fundamentally the team has to feel like what they're doing, they can make a difference, and it matters, not just to themselves, but to the business as a whole. And if you can garner that kind of culture and you can drive them towards that and feel that, then I think that is fundamental to how they will then start to perform. But part of the thing for me is the how you do that, which is vitally important. And I think it's giving the team the support to actually take risks, take calculated risks. That's really important, that they feel that they have a support network in place that they can be relied upon. But they also need, at times, encouragement to be able to take those risks as well. So you've got to balance the two, because you're not just out there to take risks without understanding actually what you're going to achieve or for the sake of it. So I think being able to do that, support them, encourage them, but also really create a culture where you can have, strong debate. You can have a meaningful disagreements, so to speak. I think conflicts are a touch too far, but I think if you have disagreements and different opinions, that's only going to make what you do even better as well. And I actually think that helps to drive connections amongst the team as well, because they understand different perspectives, they understand different views, different roles. So if you can start to facilitate that, to enable that, then I think what you create is a team which is always trying to improve. And I think that fulfillment will then come through that. And I think in the best teams I've worked in, we've always had that. It's been a healthy debate. We've pushed each other, but we've also known that what we're working towards makes a difference as well.
Thank you. And I think what's coming through to me there is the importance of setting up the environment that they know that they can test and learn, but also the push that you're giving them, which is almost like modelling the behaviour. It's like, no, go ahead and do that thing. I'm right behind you.
Yeah, 100%. And I think empowerment is really important within that context as well, yeah. So what you don't want to be doing is a lot of the time, I think it's true for everyone, and I certainly catch myself doing it, you want to solve the problem. ultimately you've got to be able to take a step back and not be the one to solve the problem, but the one to ask the questions to drive that empowerment. And I think it's a tricky balance, because like you say, we always want to move quickly. You want that momentum, but at times you've got to be comfortable with sort of pausing in order to move forward. And that's quite difficult. It's a difficult feeling, actually, because you then don't feel like you are moving forward. But at the right time, it can be really powerful to just take that pause, really be clear in terms of what you're trying to achieve, and then develop the plan, and importantly, the how. Because a lot of the time we jump into implementation mode or execution without thinking about how we're going to do that, which is less technical. It's all about the soft skills at that moment.
And the why we need to do it, so we're really clear, and as you said, that motivation that they need to feel fulfilled. And Joe, big juicy question to you. Successful and fulfilled marketing teams, what does it take?
I had a bit of an awakening recently. Abby helped with. So Trainline is has very much a culture of hustle, which is great because you get lots of stuff done really quickly, and it's a high growth company, so that's like tick, tick, tick. The opposite side of that, and the negative, is it can be frenetic and completely chaotic. So for partners working with us, teams, they can be like, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? So you can very, very quickly go into execution mode and trying to hustle and get things done. And I kind of was in this space where I feel the team needs to gel a wee bit. Like, we need to get back together. There's a few people come back from maternity leave, a few different roles. So I said to Abby, would you come in and help us with psychological safety? Thinking maybe it was a one-off session. I don't know why. Now on reflection, I thought it was a one-off session, because you don't suddenly build trust and psychological safety overnight. And actually what I discovered in that whole process was arguably, it was your five pillars here, that I think the team was lacking clarity. We had a lot of hustle. We were really good at getting some stuff done, but actually what were we all doing it for and why? And we kind of really needed to go back to that. And that why was super important. And also within that, it was like clarity within each other's sort of roles and responsibilities. It sounds, again, pretty, basic stuff, but when you're flying at the speed of light as a marketer, you rarely sit down and just take a beat and go, have I got everything set up in the right way? So I think for me, it's actually addressing psychological safety might open up a ton of other things that you actually didn't really realize that you needed to fix. So I think that's a great doorway into understanding how to build, a really fulfilled and high-performing marketing team.
And it's that creating those moments that you both described there of pause, which has gone, as you was describing, Joe, when we were working with your team, it was very much you've been running at a rapid pace and a high level of growth, and then it was like, okay, so what's the next chapter? What's the next run, the next race that we're going to run? And being able to provide that clarity. So, it's all very well for me to sit here and say, we want to build successful and fulfilled marketing teams. We all want that, right? We all want that. But what are those realities that you feel that you come up with in the day-to-day that sometimes prevent that from happening? I'll go to you first on this one, Joe.
It links to the hustle, actually. So it was really funny. We did a leadership offsite recently in Manchester, and we had a psychologist sat with us, and it was basically the exec team. And we did, like, as you do, those personality traits. And there's one, I think it's called drivers. Is it called drivers?
It's called drivers.
Yeah, drivers. And all of the team were the hurry-up driver, and I was the try-hard driver, and I was the only person on the other side of the room. It was really like, oh, and I just said, this is why I get stressed, guys, because you will try and make me hurry up, and I'm a try-hard. But no, on a serious note, I think for me, the biggest unlock is, and again, it's crazy, but it's to think that it's not so obvious, but it really is obvious, is trying to understand each other at a much deeper level, but really going deep, going back down. We went back to childhood, drivers, etc., and why we are who we are. And for me, that's unlocked conversations in the last few weeks that I didn't think I would have. It's unlocked trust that I didn't think I'd have. So yeah, I keep bringing it back to that point around trust and psychological safety.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. As you know, so my drivers are hurry up and people pleaser. So any given time, I'm trying to run really quickly whilst worrying that everyone doesn't like me. So, and that's my inner dialogue. That's my inner dialogue, and we all have, right? We all have that inner dialogue, and it's really important to know what setting direction or change may conjure up in individuals. And the ability to have resilience, which is the ability to bounce back, during times of change, is really important. But that's all based on our own personal lived experience of being able to, how we have bounced back from certain situations. And everyone in your team will be, all that internal dialogue will be happening, plus their response to what is happening within change and how that feels to them, positive, negative, somewhere in between, and then still trying to navigate and make sure everyone's moving in a forward direction. John, what about you? Practical realities of making it a reality.
Yeah, I think for me it's a slightly different context. I mean, I joined Edgewell just over 12 months ago, so I was new into the business. And I think for me, one of the biggest things to overcome over the last 12 months is gaining trust. And not just within the marketing team, but I think across the business as well. If I reflect on my journey, I'd spent 12 years in an entirely different industry, the last 10 years of that in one business. So when you walk into a new business in a leadership position, when you don't have the experience necessarily of that industry, nor of any of the categories within which you operate, it's a very, very different world that you're walking into. And I think actually what's the previous 10 to 12 years almost counts for nothing at that point, because I can't sit there and just continually reflect on, but we did it this way and it worked, so we should translate that directly across. And you become quite aware of that very, very quickly. So I think for me, it was gaining trust. And that's a continual sort of cycle for me, because, if you've got 10 years in a business, you've got the time. Literally, I mean, you're walking in probably a more junior role, you're there for 10 years, over that course of that period of time, you're building trust. But actually, when you walk in a leadership position, you've got to do it very, very quickly. And if you fail to do that, it can be quite a long road ahead, to be quite honest with you. Fortunately, I'm still here, so I must have gained some trust at some point. But I think, that for me was really important. I think very much so in terms of within the leadership team, our European leadership team, it was very important to gain their trust, because from their point of view, they've probably seen a few marketing directors come in, and there's been a bit of a revolving door. So what are you going to do that's different? So you both have to gain trust, and the way to do that, I think, is again how you do that. Your interaction, your learning, you've got to be a sponge at the start, but then you've got to be very clear in terms of what you aim to achieve moving forward. But I think also you need to get some wins out the door, if I'm entirely honest as well, to build that trust relatively quickly. And I think as you go through that, you start to change and build that culture of listening, learning, and helping to build that psychological safety where you're willing to be challenged, and you're willing to have that healthy debate as well, both from within your team, but beyond that as well. So that for me is probably the big challenge. And then secondly, I'm gonna drop in a second one here, Abby, if that's allowed. But
of course,
resistance to change as well is ongoing. You've got people who have been in the business for a very long time, yeah, and they've been doing things in a certain way, and actually that resistance to change can come from a good or a bad place. On one hand, don't break it. On the other hand, I'm fearful of change, and people don't like change. It's uncomfortable. It's hard work, and you don't quite know what the outcome of that is. And you have to be patient and take that time in order to move forward. But being very clear on why and the purpose and defining that vision early, I think has helped me in the journey on both of those counts, because it gave them clarity in terms of what we were out there to achieve, what our ambition was. And importantly, we then built on that to say, well, how are we going to do that? So it became much more tangible over time as well. And I think had I not done that, and we'd sort of carried on, it would have drifted, and people would have been up doing whatever they wanted to do ultimately if we hadn't gone down that road. So I think they're for me two of the biggest challenges to overcome.
And it really is about having that pause and that time while still trying to get your feet under the table to give that clarity, so that everyone, as you say, doesn't go off and do their own things, that we have a combined resource that's all moving in the same direction. And as highlighted on the screen, clarity is really important. And I'd like to ask that question, what is that process that you go through of defining that clarity, the vision, the purpose, where you're trying to take either the brand or business in your care or the wider marketing team? Joe?
On the brand side, I actually did a speech a minute ago on the brewery stage, and to me, basically, it's all about answering 3 questions. And it's kind of like, why do you exist? Ultimately, you're here to solve a problem. What is that problem? And you should be able to boil that down to 2 or 3 things. What do you put on a poster? It's basically what's your offer, your proposition, and where do you point the money? And literally, my job is to relentlessly ask those 3 questions of the business and of myself, and drive that discussion forward. And so that kind of like sets the direction, as it were, in terms of what we're building, what we're creating, and what we're going to execute. And then the team around that, I think it's finding the right bridge around building the right team to deliver that, but also there's exceptional talent. So there'll be 1 or 2 people in your team that will be exceptional at doing a specific thing, but you can't build a team around certain people, right? So it's finding that balance. So as long as you kind of got a very good clarity on where you're headed, and then ultimately you structure your team around that. And again, it sounds really simple, but sometimes we forget to do those simple things. Perhaps use 1 or 2 people to be those supercharged buttons as you need to. And that's kind of what really is my focus.
So having those supercharged buttons, always with the people that you trust, that you know that they will bring things to life, but also whilst building the skill and capability within the team. So, John, I know that you have been on a process of defining your vision and obviously the skills that you need for your team to deliver on your future position within marketing. Tell us a little bit more about that journey.
Yeah, this has taken us quite some time actually to get to, but what we recognised fairly early on was that we needed to diagnose and be really clear in terms of what the problem was that we were trying to solve for, before we even jumped into thinking about what we wanted to be and what that journey would look like. And I think that's where we spent the bulk of the time, really understanding where we were now, where we had been as a business, and what we needed to do in order to move forward. Because the reality was we were a European business, but we were, if I'm honest, before sort of composite parts. We had slightly different areas of the business units that were very separate, very isolated. You had high autonomy within markets, so you didn't have that kind of centralisation. So we had a lot to face into and a lot to understand and diagnose as to why we were in that position and what the challenges were that came with that. And I think we spent so much time doing that first to get it down into a really pithy, almost succinct problem statement from which we could actually then jump off and be much clearer in terms of the shifts and the changes we wanted to make, which culminated in the vision work that you helped us with, Abby. And I think that was a really pivotal moment. And we spent a lot of time, as you do as a marketeer, wordsmithing, fine-tuning, going back round and round this bunch of words to make sure they make sense. But without the beliefs and the principles that underpin that and the behaviours, actually a couple of sentences on a slide don't really count for very much. So defining then the how, what are our beliefs, what are our principles, what do we believe as a team are important to move forward. And that's when, a part of it, we talk about empowerment here, but it's also engagement with the team. So it wasn't me sat in a room on my own for 2 days and then sort of walking out the door with jazz hands going, ta-da, I've got the solution, guys. This was making sure that we brought all of those key people together to have an input, to have a say in order to shape it. And that included all of the country marketing directors, included the central marketing leadership team as well. They could all take ownership for it. They could all contribute to it. And in doing so, they had belief in the vision and the principles, which ultimately leads to action as well. And I think that was a real pivotal part. I think define the challenge really clearly, and then make sure that you're including everyone in that journey so that they can help shape it, own it, and ultimately live it through the business on a day-to-day basis.
And getting that buy-in from the wider team on the shifts is particularly when as you were describing earlier, when you've got people in your team in different functions that have different longevity within the organisation, allowing them to understand where you are now and where you want to get to across all of those kind of key levers is really important, so that they feel part of the journey, want to come with you. Because as I always say, writing the vision is always just the start. The rest is making that reality, because I see lots of organisations and teams where vision and values is just something on a wall. It isn't something that's being lived and breathed in the day-to-day, and isn't something that's being built into the way in which you do marketing within your organisation, the way in which you behave, or the culture of the team. And that's the hard graft, right? That's the hard graft of making that reality. And as we said, marketing is constantly changing. It's really important to take those pauses that you described, to think about where you're going and work collaboratively to bring that vision to life, to find those people that can really make those things happen, but also build the capability of the wider team. As I always say, marketing is a challenging yet rewarding profession. So with that in mind, how do you maintain the motivation and fulfillment of the members of your team in that kind of day-to-day need to deliver and bring plans and products and services to market? Joe?
I'm going to use a golf analogy because my family is golf obsessed. I'm terrible at golf, but my family seems to be a lot better than me. So my brother's a professional golfer, and he has this saying, which is, you've got to enjoy the grind. What he means by that is, if anyone's ever played golf, it's really frustrating because some nods. Chipping out of a bunker, I don't know, putting, you seem to miss it, and you're so convinced it was going in. But basically, it's kind of, you're going to have great days, you're going to have bad days, and ultimately, if you believe in the whole thing that you're going after, and you will get there, you've just got to just act with consistency and every day try your best, and every time keep going. That chip, that putt, it's adding up to be the next best round of your life or whatever, right? So for me, it's just the consistency of trying and showing up. And ultimately, you'll get better every single time as a result of that. And for everyone in my team, for me, it's continually to motivate them that the daily grind, I don't call it that, but ultimately that's what it is, actually is adding up to something really, really awesome.
And I guess taking those moments to kind of pause and reflect on the journey, going, we are getting there. Someone once said to me on one of the episodes, marketing is like rolling a boulder up a hill, and the second you get there, you let it go, and you have to roll it all the way back up again. So I think having those moments to pause and celebrate the success that you're having on the journey, it is that North Star, isn't it? It's that thing that we're all working towards together, even though it can feel painful in the here and now. And, both of you spoke about your own kind of personal reflections around what it takes in order to ensure that there is the support and psychological safety happening within your team. As I always say, marketing leaders, you can only help others to the extent in which you know yourself. And Joe, you mentioned around kind of the work that you've done also as a leadership team to really get to know each other. How do you build some of those principles of personal understanding into the members of your team so that not only are they aware of what they like to be around, but they have that clarity of the values and the drivers in order to kind of keep themselves motivated as well? John, I'll come to you on that one.
Yeah, I think, look, we do it in a number of different ways. I think one very effective way that we found, certainly, I think as a business, is we use some external coaches as well. Because I think that independence of thought and mind is very useful. Mm. But within that context as well, it's not just kind of the senior members of the team. We actually invite some of the people below to come in. And what that does, and what is slightly frightening at times, it holds a mirror up to you as well. Mm. Yeah, so actually getting that upwards feedback and encouraging that, and encouraging them to actually be part of that journey to push us, both as a marketing leadership team and beyond, I think is really, really important, because at times you can feel like, yeah, I know where we're going, we're clear on it. It's only actually when you get the mirror held up in front of you, you go, oh, yeah, maybe we've missed a beat here, or maybe we need to reflect on that differently. So I think what we're trying to do is really advocate for that feedback to be going both ways, constantly checking in, etc., and getting the feel for actually how we're doing on a personal level, not just on a professional level. We talk a lot about bringing joy to useful things within our business. It's about that. We want people to feel joyful. We want people to feel part of something and feel that momentum. And for me, that's a really important part of being motivated. We can talk about visions and things like that, but ultimately it's a feeling. And for me, that comes through momentum. And if you can kind of feel like you're always moving forwards, like you can feel something happening, there's an energy. And I think when you get to that, it tends to then take a life of its own when those wheels start to stick and you go. And that's really what we're trying to build towards.
And as I'm listening to you, what's really coming through strongly is that importance to be able to have an open door, to hear that feedback, to evolve, to move things forward, but also to demonstrate that we are moving forward and we're moving away from the stickiness, if you will, of where we are at the moment. We are moving forward. Joe, what about yourself?
was the question again?
The question was about maintaining motivation and fulfilment in your team in the day-to-day. It's fine. It's hot in here.
Yeah, it is warm actually. Yeah, and I feel like I need sunglasses. I think you need to have fun at the end of the day. I think it's, without fun, it just becomes a slog. And if I'm talking about, enjoying the grind and actually consistently showing up on a regular basis, if you're not having fun along the way, then it's going to be pretty demotivating. And I think, whatever your brand or your business is, or whatever you do, I'm sure there are moments and things within that are really exciting and really fun to do. We just did Glastonbury Festival. The team worked really, really hard, but they also played really hard and they had a great time. So, and I don't look on that as like, actually, am I going to get those hours and minutes back from the team because they've been watching, I don't know, Busta Rhymes? No, I'm like, you've nailed it. You have a great time. So as long as you can bring some fun and joy into that everyday grind, I think that's really important.
So we're building teams that are fun, that are moving in a forward direction, that are able to have that psychological safety, to feedback, to build and move things forward. What about the empowerment, the ability to have the right tools, the thinking, the ways of working and skills? What have you built in place within your teams? I'll go to you first, John.
Yeah, look, I mean, we're in the process of doing that, if I'm entirely honest. But I think what's important is that we're starting to build a set of competencies that are linked to our beliefs and our principles, which ultimately come from our vision. So getting that vision right and spending the time to do that was vitally important. And now it will cascade that right the way through to competencies, which for me have a dual benefit. Number one, they're setting expectations in terms of the requirements, but they're also providing opportunity as well, because you get to then start to map your career path, understand what's expected to move through. And we'll support that with training as we go forward. I think, that's why we're all here today, yeah? We're learning new things, we're meeting new people, being inspired by different sessions. And for a marketeer, to hear that external noise and think about what you can bring back into your business is vitally important. The question that we ask ourselves is, well, how do we shape that to help meet our vision? And that's the job that we've got to do, and that we're kind of in full flow at the moment.
We are definitely in full flow. We are in full flow of building that. And building it, as you say, against the vision and purpose of where we want to go. So I always say, where do you want to take the brand and business, but where do you want to take your marketing team or function? And that's the bit that, you've done beautifully, of kind of having that clarity of this is what I'm seeing and this is where I want to take the team, and kind of getting people aligned to it. And what about yourself, Joe? The kind of empowerment that you're putting in place for your team?
I think we're on that journey. I always start with the principle of freedom and accountability in anything. So, you have the freedom to, ultimately spend the money, think about the idea, but as long as you're accountable for the results. But sometimes you actually need to step in, but not to kind of like check in on them or like redirect them or tell them what to do. It's more like going, actually, might you be able to like help them broaden their mind or broaden their thinking on something? And ultimately, if you haven't got that from to and that vision that we've talked about so often, then you kind of are doing it in a bit of a vacuum. So as long as you have that kind of structure, that clarity of direction, and then ultimately you are giving them some freedom and accountability on getting there, I think that's a really powerful thing to do.
And I guess trust is the
trust, absolutely,
thing that underpins all of that work. Amazing. So I've been asked to see if there's any questions from anyone in the audience that you want to ask myself, Joe, or John. Oh, they're coming. Here's the questions. Thank you. Ooh, big juicy one here. Somebody wants to start off with a big juicy question. How do you start building the pillars of a successful marketing team from scratch? Do you want me to answer that first? You guys are looking at me. Hi.
Well, that's kind of what you do. You help us do that. So
we do.
You want to start?
So it starts with... Love that. So successful is very much around what is the ability and capability within your team. So if you're starting from scratch, it's very much of what do you believe the role of marketing should be within your organization. So, it's easy to sit here and say marketing should be leading the long-term commercial agenda when a lot of us are on a journey to getting there. So, we work with a whole range of organizations, for those that are a support function to sales or to R&D, all the way to those that really are consumer-centric. So I think it's really about acknowledging where you are and where you would like to take your team within your care. And then when you've got there, to go, so what do those skills that I really believe them to need them to possess? Now, we always start with technical skills. and technical skills to lead that long-term commercial agenda. So, thinking about the ability to set the vision, to write the long-term strategy, to make the strategic choices, to make sure that you're really clear on the tactical growth drivers, that you're thinking about the measurement of effectiveness and the way in which you're demonstrating, the commercial return to the business at the very minimum, if not owning that full P&L. And building insight, making sure it's actionable, embedded in the whole wider organisation. I could go on and on about the technical skills, but for me, it's really important that building that successful team, that you're really clear on the how you want them to do it and the why that you want them to do it. The how then gives them the clarity, so they feel empowered to go ahead and do that themselves, a clarity on the expectation of what the skill level is that we want them to deliver it against, but also the why. So the why for the motivation. The why is almost the most important thing, because it not only outlines what the definition of success is, but it also outlines, and therefore that what they're working towards, but why they're doing it, to give that motivation and fulfillment. So that was the big first question. Do you guys want to add anything to that?
No, I think you've
Can I have the key code, please, to this? John?
No, look, I think every business is different as well, yeah. So I think taking the time to understand what you really need is absolutely critical. So we've kind of gone through a little bit of this, and actually the way I'd structure the team and my ask of the team in this business are very, very different to my previous business. And I think having the awareness and the understanding that you can't simply pick something up and drop it into a new environment, you've really got to do the work in the background to understand which of those elements are going to be important to you. And then underpin that with the behaviours, especially, because I think a lot of what we're going to get done is using soft skills. How are we going to influence in order to meet those objectives? And you can't underplay how important that is as well.
Really important. Joe, do you want to answer the same question, or would you like me to go to the next one, because I have two more? Okay, I'll crack on. So, how do you create fun in a remote working environment? I'll go to you, Joe, on that one.
I'm now having flashbacks to Zoom quizzes in COVID. I don't know about you. That's a really great question, and I definitely don't sit here and profess to have the answer for sure. And obviously, some companies are 100% remote, and therefore, I'm definitely not the best person to speak to on that. But I genuinely believe, at some point in time, there is a need for some physical human connection and understanding of each other. And going deep on getting that trust and psychological safety and closeness, that actually when you do have remote conversations, you can have meaningful ones, and it's not transactional. Whether it might be about, I don't know, like your day, maybe it's about how, I don't know, your kids are annoying you, or maybe it's about I don't know, something you're doing to your house, whatever it is, that you need a level of closeness to build, something in a remote working environment that's fun and enjoyable to do. So, and that will, in my opinion, require you to spend some time physically together at some point.
John, did you want to build anything?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I was in France with some of my team earlier this week, and we hadn't got together for, 5 months or something like that. But you could see the difference 24 hours made. And within that period of time, you create time for fun as well. So, whether, we're in an escape room on Monday night in 38-degree heat in Paris, which is wonderful, before going for a meal or some drinks or whatever. But you make sure that within that schedule, it isn't all about work, and you do give yourselves time to relax, to build that personal connection as well, because I think that's what really matters. When you're in a virtual environment, which we frequently are, and I think Joe's absolutely right, you don't just launch into work. That can be really transactional, and over time, that becomes really difficult. So I think taking the time just to have a bit of a chat, as you would do if you're wandering around an office, grabbing a coffee or whatever. So I think if you can approach it in that manner, then you can keep that relationship moving and going forward. But in person, definitely, you need to do that.
We have some really juicy questions here. I'm going to go to the juiciest question on here next. How do you re-engage a disengaged team?
I actually had this problem, genuinely. So we went through some redundancies at Christmas, and that's always terrible, right? Because you fear for your job, or you don't know who to trust anymore, and all of that things. And I know that is the kind of the circle of life when it comes to business, but it still doesn't change actually how it makes you feel. And you can feel rejected and all of those things. Anyway, so at that time, I think, I was like, well, I can't make everyone happy, like just suddenly overnight, right? And for me, there's a lot of spending time listening and understanding how people are thinking and feeling. And then also just kind of going, I don't know quite how to get this right. And actually that's why I brought Abby in, because I was like, there's only so much you can do and so much people will share after like something that's happened like that. And actually sometimes you need an injection of someone externally to come in and really try and open people up or re-inspire them, what have you. And we are on a journey. So, I mean, I think it takes about 2 years for a company to get over a redundancy process, and ours was about 5% of the workforce. So it isn't some of the big numbers some of the tech companies are doing, but it's still significant. It's still people's lives and their livelihoods. So for me, I would say if there are moments where you are pretty low, I would definitely consider bringing in fresh pair of eyes, ears, voice, just to interject something into you as well as your team. And Abby certainly interjected something to me where I had a really poor self-awareness on to what extent I had psychological safety of my team. So I think it's really important that you kind of go, am I self-aware enough in this situation to be able to address it? And then you obviously need people to hold a mirror up to do that. So thank you, by the way. Oh.
My pleasure. I think if I build on that, I think what change does to individuals and what times of redundancy does to individuals is that it's actually based on that individual. So someone's response to change, as we mentioned earlier about resilience, their personal experience around restructures or how they view redundancy, but also potentially for those that are left behind, I think sometimes can be even more difficult because they're going, if security, for example, is a value or a sense of belonging is a value and they really value work as part of their personal identity, that can also have that impact. So I think in times of change, it's almost one size does not fit all. Every single individual needs that time to express, to process, to explore, for you to understand how it's impacting them individually as well. John, have you got anything to add on the engaging and a disengaged team?
Yeah, I think there's probably two things for me. I think, a lot of the time people may be disengaged because there's uncertainty. So I think providing clarity is really important within that moment. But I would also say don't underestimate the amount of time and energy it takes when you have to lean in and spend your time doing this as well. In reality is the more you do that, and it's going to be a hell of a lot more than you ever imagined, but the more you do that, I think the quicker and the stronger the bond will be outside of in the longer term as well. But it takes patience, takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and you've got to make that investment as well.
Yeah, and
just on that, we actually do employee engagement surveys on a regular basis. We did one in Feb, and we did one finished last week, and my team's scores jumped 8 points, which is to me amazing, and that genuinely is a result of doing this stuff that's on the screen behind you. So I definitely feel on the start of that journey it's not certainly done, but it already it's conveyed in results that are genuine and authentic.
And it is always a journey. It's never, ever one and done. And I always get concerned when clients come to us and they're like, so we've got this problem, here's our performance review or employee feedback. We need a session. And it's never just a session. It's always a long journey and really understanding what's happening for the individuals as well as for the team. So one of the questions we have here, and I think this builds really nicely to what you were just saying there about the energy you need as well when you're going through periods of change, is what do you as leaders do to build your confidence and conviction? There are brackets here, any reading, training, development focuses. But I think for me it's, what is the energy that you need, particularly going through times of change? Because if everyone's leaning on you, you've got to make sure that you are able to stand up, right? So that's the question. I'm just going to just put in my 2 pennies here around confidence and conviction. So confidence for me comes from your ability to really know what it is that you bring to the world, to be able to really clearly identify what your strengths are, what your values, what your skills, what your talents are, and know that. I mean, who here has imposter syndrome? Okay, I'm always worried about people that don't have imposter syndrome. They're the people you want to worry about, okay? And it's knowing that defining and knowing what you bring to the world really helps combat the imposter syndrome or comparisonitis, because it goes, I know what I'm really good at, but I also know I've got a team of individuals that are really good at other things, and also allowing them to define and know that for themselves can really help build your confidence. That's my 2 pennies on confidence. But confidence, conviction, or energy? Who wants to go first?
Belief.
Joe?
Belief. I'm going with belief.
Belief.
Conviction, maybe it's the same thing.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, it's going to be hard to motivate yourself to get up every day and keep trying. And it's about that consistency and enjoying the grind, as I said earlier.
Belief, John?
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think, look, you go through these moments and there's a lot of self-reflection. You're asking yourselves a lot of questions. Did I do this correctly? Did I do that? You do question a lot of what you do. But I think if you've got that kind of inherent belief in what you're doing is the right thing, then that will ultimately see you through and provide you with that confidence. But yeah, I mean, it's not easy. You do ask a lot of yourself and a lot of questions as you go through that.
Yeah, I always say it's never a mistake, it's always a learning, and it's really important to have the reflection, particularly if you have those difficult conversations, how that went, for the individual, for yourself, what you could do differently next time, because we're all works in progress at any given time. I'm going to build on this question because it's reflective of what we just discussed, which is, as a leader, your mood can have a huge impact on your team. Consistency is important to have safety with teams. How do you manage yourself to stay consistent but also deal with your own peaks and troughs with energy and belief and conviction and confidence?
I think a therapy is helpful along the way. So kind of, again, understanding yourself and what your kind of drivers and triggers are. So that's definitely a major tick for me, and making sure you know that. And then actually for me, I just make sure I get out in nature every single day, and it just rebalances me. I know it probably sounds a bit trite, but sit at a desk all day long or meetings isn't really what's gonna inspire me and make me a great leader. So I think knowing yourself and finding the pauses that are really going to make you better is how I work.
Amazing. John?
Yeah, for me, I think it's a discipline in terms of when you're on and when you're off. Yeah, so there's a certain point in the evening, unless something massive has happened, that's it. Phone away, laptop away. Certainly over the weekend, you're spending time with the family, with the kids, and doing your own thing as well. And I used to be when I was younger, you'd open up the laptop on a Sunday evening, or you'd be doing work, things like that. No longer. So I'm really quite disciplined with myself. Monday to Friday, it's all about that, and then after that, stop. Because for me, it's about managing that energy and having that downtime, being able to relax, recharge, and get yourself going again.
Yeah, and I find that people are often more able to prioritise their own rest when they know that it's to benefit of other people, and obviously as leaders, that's absolutely essential.
Yeah, my wife may disagree, but...
So that is the end of the Q&A. Thank you to everyone that came along. Please do connect with us. I think we're going to stay around for some questions if you've got some more personal questions that you want to ask myself, John, or Joe. But otherwise, thank you for coming.
Thank you.